Good evening, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, and welcome to the We All Be experience. It is the We All Be experience. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some fly info to learn from. Learn from. Thank you all for receiving the information. 2018 is a very important year, is a monumental year. It is the year of the mailman, not just the black. See, I want to get my people to understand. We got to stop. This is Sunday. This is We All Be Live, the Sunday brunch edition, right? This is a very come Sunday that Duke Ellington song with Mahalia Jackson. We are very spiritual people. Don't let your religion get in the way of your spirituality. Don't let religion get in the way of your spirituality. Religion is a form of politics. I know y'all don't want to believe that. A lot of people don't believe that. Religion is a form of politics. The Vatican is more political than spiritual. Think about it. Do the research. Take a look. It's all online. And in a book still. Why it's still available. But y'all know the topic of today. I know y'all been hearing about QuINcy Jones spilling the tea, but not getting too much tea on him. See, he's a master artist. He understands the art of spilling tea. But there's some things that people have not looked closely at both the Vulture interview as well as the GQ magazine interview. I read both of those interviews. They're very enjoyable, very timely, considering it's Black History Month. But there's some things that other people ain't gonna tell you about that I actually looked at and I thought about. That's why it took me days to really say something about QuINcy Jones interviews. There's a lot of sensationalism in those interviews, but there are things that people are looking over that should be revisited and they should hold QuINcy Jones accountable for. And it's not the things you think that I'm talking about that he should be held accountable for, but there are things that I know just for being a voracious reader all my life and from listening to elders and whatnot about the situation. I'm gonna tell y'all some things, and I invite brother QuINcy Jones to answer back if he have time, because I have got my magic glasses on. And what I want y'all to do, because people tell me, well, brother Ron, can you broadcast more often? I said, well, doing this ain't really paying the bills. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all got limited time. Time is one of the most valuable assets that you have. It takes time to research and put together shows. It takes time to try to understand things and try to break it down and make it plain. So I help people asking me right now because they are enjoying the We All Be Live broadcast that I'm doing. I want to thank everybody who has been supporting through donations on a consistent basis, either via PayPal or patreon.com/We All Be. We need independent Black media. We need to be able to speak truth to power and still pay the bills. Like, once again, we need to be able to speak truth to power and pay the bills. I'm blessed that I accept this assignment. Like Baba Dick Gregory used to tell me, Run, if you ain't up for the assignment, we soldiers. If you ain't up to the assignment, get the fuck out the army. And I'm still in the army for truth and justice and reconciliation and reparations for my people, the universal people. They are the melanated folk. But I'm trying to break this down to you all because y'all not gonna get this anywhere else. I mean, I listen to a lot of people. That's how I do my research. Not only do I read books, but I also listen to other people. And I spend time meditating on things, and things kind of come to you. Even now, today, things have came to me that gave me some clarity that I didn't have about this QuINcy Jones thing. And QuINcy Jones is a very fascinating character. He won more Grammys than anybody in history. I think he's the most nominated Grammy person as well, too. Grammys is the highest level of award you get in the music entertainment business, music industry. And QuINcy got what, 28 of those. So he's a master musician. He's been around for decades. I mean, he is, like he said, the ghetto Gump. I mean, he found himself in fascinating places with very interesting and fascinating people, a part of a history that is very colorful, at times very tragic, and very brilliant. So, I mean, he lived a life like he's like Dick Gregory. Him and Dick Gregory are the Ghetto Gumps. Baba Dick Gregory and brother QuINcy. And I want y'all to understand too, QuINcy Jones is about to turn 85 this year, March 14th. They said it's his birthday. I want to talk about that as well because a lot of people don't know when QuINcy was really born. Because QuINcy, they got it on Wikipedia as March 14th, 1933. Nobody knows how old QuINcy Jones is. I don't think QuINcy Jones really know how old he is because if you look at all the people he said he connected with, then you got to look at the timeline. You understand? That's why I'm going to pull up some information out these interviews that are fascinating. It's not going to be the information people think I'm going to pull out because y'all been looking at other people say this. I'm not really about the emotionalism. I know I do an exciting presentation, a fiery presentation, because our people need that. We are programmed for emotionalism. We need that type of fiery. That's why Malcolm X is so popular and Elijah Muhammad is slept on because you look at their speech presentations. Elijah Muhammad give you some information, how to eat to live, all that stuff. Malcolm come in, you've been had, you've been hoodwinked, you've been bamboozled. Plymouth Rock didn't land on us. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Y'all like that fiery. That's why so many of us are in the churches today, packing churches today. Church is one of the wealthiest institutions in our so-called community, but Memphis is one of the poorest cities in America. Memphis is one of the poorest cities in America, but almost on every corner, you got a church, not just Church's Chicken, not just a liquor store, but a church in one of the most impoverished cities in America. See, there's a difference between cost of living and quality of life. The cost of living in Memphis is not that bad. It's good. But the quality of life is very cheap here. The quality of life is very cheap here. The infrastructure is engineered to create a culture of poverty, although Memphis has blessed America and the world with cultural riches. I could say the old timers. See, I don't know old timers, old black men, black women. Some of these old timers, they got these stories that some of these white journalists don't know about. They gloss over or they take it and they'll exaggerate it. My understanding about QuINcy Jones is there was a Memphis cat named Onzy Horn Sr. that taught QuINcy Jones how to arrange and compose music at Berkeley up in Boston or whatever. I don't know how true it is, but I heard this from several old-time musicians in Memphis. And sometimes when people tell you truth, it's not going to be able to be Googled all the time. Because a lot of times, like I said, a lot of us lack knowledge of self. So QuINcy Jones, they tell me he was taught composition and arranging by a Memphis dude named Onzy Horn Sr., who was a band director at one point who sold insurance. But according to his son, Onzy Horn Jr., he was told by the one and only, the great Lionel Hampton, a great vibraphonist. Look up Lionel Hampton. Because QuINcy Jones, I think his first gig was with Lionel Hampton. They played the Dwight D. Eisenhower's inaugural ball back in '53. But QuINcy Jones' first gig, his first big-time professional gig, was with Lionel Hampton. And Lionel Hampton allegedly told Onzy Horn Jr. on an elevator ride that his father was the greatest vibraphonist he ever heard in his life. And that's high praise. And another Black history note, Lionel Hampton's uncle was the boyfriend of the Queen of the Blues, Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith died in Clarksdale after getting in a horrific accident. He was in the car with Bessie Smith when she got in that accident. So Lionel Hampton is interesting. History. He died, I believe, in the early 2000s, almost 100 years old. He was a proud Black Republican, interesting guy. But QuINcy Jones' first gig, his major gig, was with Lionel Hampton, which brings me to this point right here. QuINcy said that he was riding with Lionel. Lionel wanted him when he was 15 years old to go on the road with his band. Let me find this information. This is coming from the GQ magazine. Y'all should check out the GQ magazines and stuff like that. And interview on QuINcy Jones and the Vulture interview with QuINcy Jones. But this is coming from GQ magazine interview they did recently. It says, let's see. Jones's first proper sustained job as a professional musician came when he went on the road playing trumpet with the band leader Lionel Hampton when Jones was 18. Hampton first invited Jones to join his touring band when Jones was 15, and Jones had even gotten on the bus ready to leave, but Hampton's wife and business manager threw him off because he was too young. At 18, he was ready, or as ready as one could be. The band bus with Lionel Hampton got 33 people on it. The front half of the right side, we call them the Holy Rollers. The weed smokers behind them, that's us. The boozers here and the junkies there. Every time we go to Detroit at the Majestic Hotel, standing in front with his Italian shit on and amber glasses, Malcolm X, Detroit Red. That's where we brought our dope. It was before he went to prison. You buy off him? What the question the interviewer asked. Yeah, he was the dope dealer. That's how he went to prison. So the journalist asked once again, I guess journalist. So you would personally buy drugs off Malcolm X? Personally, he nods. Shit, everybody in the band brought it. The junkies used to call cocaine girl and heroin boy. That's because they said cocaine would take you from your woman. Okay. So that's in the GQ magazine article. And first of all, there are some problems with this story. Quincy Jones, according to online documents, he was born March 14, 1933 in Chicago. He was born March 14th, 1933 in Chicago. And he said he was buying drugs off Malcolm X, Detroit Red. First of all, there was no Malcolm X in the 40s. He was known as Detroit Red. See, this the games they play. Malcolm X did not sell drugs to him. He said a character named Detroit Red sold drugs to him. Malcolm X was Malcolm Little in the 1940s, right? And here's another thing. I said that, Quincy said he was born, or they say he was born March 14th, 1933. The issue is, this is what they say. If you know anything about Malcolm X, y'all should have questioned him on this from the get-go. Eventually, Malcolm and his longtime friend, Malcolm Shorty Jarvis, moved back to Boston. In 1946, they were arrested and convicted on burglary charges. Burglary charges. Excuse me. Jesus. And Malcolm was sentenced to 10 years in prison, although he was granted parole after serving 7 years. So the problem is, Quincy said, what did Quincy say in the interview, or supposedly said? He tried to join Lionel Hampton band at 15, but the wife kicked him out. And at 18, he was ready. If he was born March 14th, 1933, then he wouldn't turn 18 until 1951. So he said he was with Lionel Hampton band at age 18. That would have been 1951. Like I said, he played with Lionel Hampton band at Dwight D. Eisenhower's inaugural, which was in 53. And Malcolm went to prison. What did they say? Malcolm went to prison in 46. And Malcolm didn't get out of prison until 7 years later, which would make that 1953, when Quincy Jones was 20. He might have met a character that went by Detroit Red in Detroit at the Majestic Hotel, but it wasn't Malcolm Little. I repeat, it was not Malcolm Little. If that's the timeline, if they're saying he was born March 14th, 1933, and when Malcolm went to prison in 1946, he would have been 13 years old. He would have been 13 years old. And he said Quincy Jones said that Lionel Hampton's wife kicked him off the bus at 15. That's just one thing. I'm not saying that everything that Quincy Jones talk about in these interviews are not true. Richard Pryor Woodall, for example, came out and verified that Richard Pryor did indeed have a relationship with Marlon Brando. He did, and that's sensationalized. But I'm looking at these facts. He tried to claim that he was buying drugs or heroin, or the people were, his bandmates were buying stuff from Malcolm X, and Malcolm was in jail at that time in Massachusetts. Read his autobiography. So that's just one thing. One thing. And I thought it was interesting too. Another thing, because a lot of folks ain't gonna talk about it, they don't know about it. I mean, I'm a different dude, man. I'm not like everybody else, and I embrace that. I'm the cat that women, oh my God, Ron's kind of intense. He's too out there. He's too this and that. People say, why are you not married? I'm married to my work. You know, the right ones will come along. I'll welcome them to the fold. But, you know, I'm not sweating that because it's good sometimes to be alone. You got to develop a love for yourself, a relationship with yourself, me, myself, and I. But y'all should check that out for yourself and say, what, QuINcy? Why are you lying? Or how old are you really, QuINcy? Were you really born in the 20s? Are you closer to 95 than 85? That would make more sense if he had that meeting with Malcolm X in Detroit than it would for me to believe that this 13-year-old kid, I mean, he already said it himself. That Lionel Hampton's wife kicked him out the bus at 15, and he started working for Lionel Hampton at 18 years old, which would make that 1951. So Malcolm was nowhere near Detroit during the time he's claiming. But anyway, he's QuINcy Jones. He's from Chicago. And he talking about how his father was a carpenter that worked for the Jones. They were gangsters. Because QuINcy said he was growing up in Chicago, he wanted to be a gangster. Jones. Nobody is going to get you. I'm not going to do all this metaphysics shit, all right? I'm about to tell you something. Research it, understand it. Because QuINcy is smart. He is not senile. He is not fucking stupid. He's brilliant. And what he's doing is he know people don't read up on nothing. They're like folks today, the music industry is suffering because people don't research the history of what came before. He made great points about that. I don't doubt him about that because he's a phenomenal musician visionary. He made great points. People don't study the history. People don't do, they rather take a charismatic figure, some type of charismatic person that has a way with words and take them at face value. Do the research. QuINcy Jones said that he's from Chicago, born March 14th, 1933. His father, last name Jones as well, worked for the Notorious Jones gang. Now, I think QuINcy is referring to the Jones brothers. Now, him and Oprah got a special relationship. It was him who talent scouted Oprah for the movie Color Purples. He discovered Oprah while she was doing a thing in Chicago and said she should be the one to play that role in Color Purple, which she was nominated for an Oscar for. She got an Oscar nomination for her role in Color Purple. And him and Oprah got a special saying. They call themselves two motherless mofos from Mississippi. Two motherless mofos from Mississippi. Now, if you know anything about organized crime history and all that stuff, or black history as it relates to organized crime, you know that the Jones brothers of Chicago were the kings of policy. They were the kings of the policy wheel, the ghetto lottery. You know, they made nickels and dimes and pennies add up to millions of dollars annually. They controlled the policy racket. This is the precursor to the state lottery and all that stuff. So they was running the policy wheels in the south side of Chicago, making hella money. The stories about the Jones brothers, they from Vicksburg, Mississippi. Their father was a minister who died, and I believe their mom gave them the insurance money or the seed money to start a taxi cab business, which they use as foundation to start their policy racket. So I believe that when QuINcy Jones said two motherless motherfuckers from Mississippi, I think he's related to the Jones brothers. The Jones brothers was interesting. They were fascinating people, in particular Eddie Jones. Now, you know, in the Vulture interview that QuINcy Jones named Sam Giancana, the Chicago mob boss, as a person who killed JFK. Now, Sam Giancana has an interesting relationship with the Jones brothers, in particular Eddie Jones. When he was serving time in prison up in Illinois for income tax evasion, Eddie Jones was also serving time in the same penitentiary along with Sam Giancana for income tax evasion. He took the rap for the family. So he went to jail. He befriended Sam Giancana. Sam Giancana took a liking as the best he could to Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones, like Sam Giancana, he told Sam Giancana about the policy rackets in the ghetto, in the black neighborhoods and community in Bronzeville, that was making him a phenomenal lifestyle. You know, the Jones brothers owned property throughout the world. They had palatial estates and mansions in places like Mexico and in Europe and places like France. They were living good. The brothers married well. They married beautiful light-skinned sisters. I think they used to dance at the Cotton Club, some of them. I'm not sure, but go and follow that history. But anyway, Eddie Jones showed Sam Giancana the history and the magical power of policy. And because the Chicago mob, which was known as the Outfit, they were not into policy at that time. This is back in the 40s when they met in prison. And then Sam Giancana introduced the idea of taking over the policy game from the black gangsters, the black godfathers. So in lies a war. What happened was Sam Giancana visited Eddie Jones once they got out of prison, went to his home, was amazed that this black man was living like a king. Like, you know, designer clothes, carpet that's flush, carpet like this immaculate carpet. Man, furs, diamonds, jewelry, money everywhere. He was impressed by that, but he also thought that no nigga should have that type of power. It's like they said about Malcolm decades, no one should have that type of power. He was envious of Eddie Jones. He wanted what Eddie Jones had. He coveted what Eddie Jones had. So what Sam Giancana did, he kidnapped Eddie Jones and forced his folks to pay a ransom. And he told Eddie Jones to leave Chicago and never come back, or we'll kill you and your family. So Eddie Jones left Chicago, left all his policy stuff, and Sam Giancana and the Chicago mob did a hostile takeover. So Eddie Jones' people left Chicago, left their policy, but a lot of the black godfathers fought back. A lot of the black gangsters in Chicago fought back. Everybody didn't fold because this white man took over their stuff. One man in particular was Ted Rowe. Y'all should check out Ted Rowe, Theodore Rowe, R-O-E. This brother was from Arkansas, by the way, Louisiana. He looked like he was a white man, but he was a proud black man. And Sam Giancana and them and him went toe-to-toe for years. He actually killed Sam Giancana's best friend, Fat Lenny Cafano. Fat Lenny Cafano, his brother was Marshall Cafano, who ran Vegas for the Chicago mob. So Teddy Rowe actually killed Sam Giancana's best friend, and they went into a war. And I believe what happened August 4th, 1952, as Teddy Rowe was leaving his apartment, he got shot up by Sam Giancana's crew. But I believe he just surrendered to the fact that he was dying from cancer. Allegedly, he had cancer in the latter stages. He just said, fuck it, I'm gonna go out like a G. So he walked out of his house, got shot up by Sam Giancana. Now, years later, Sam Giancana was on wiretap by the FBI. The FBI wiretapped him. And Sam Giancana said, it was a damn shame. I'm paraphrasing Sam Giancana. It was a damn shame to kill Teddy Rowe. That nigga had some balls. They don't make them like that no more. Teddy Rowe was a bad cat, man. But look up the Chicago policy underworld and the Jones brothers. And QuINcy was making reference to the Jones brothers. And I believe Quincy Jones is a part of that family because his last name is Jones. And he always talking about he wanted to be a gangster while he was growing up in Chicago. So check that out. Ted Rowe. It's fascinating, man. It is. So black history is better than science fiction. It's better than any Hollywood movie because you said, damn, this shit happened for real. So yeah, QuINcy, man, I don't think you met Malcolm X or all that. You might have met him later when he was out of prison. But you not meet no Malcolm X when you were 18 because Malcolm was still in prison. Malcolm was still in prison. What else he talked about? Okay. I keep on thinking what they said Tupac said about Quincy Jones. You know, because Tevin Campbell had to take to Twitter, the social media, to defend the fact that that Quincy Jones did not molest him, did not take advantage of him. But I think about Tevin Campbell. Tevin Campbell is a brilliant artist, right? And what I tell people, you gotta look at these artists like the mailman theory, right? You cannot allow yourself to get so personally involved in people's personal lives, because a lot of times it's going to be a disappointment. It's going to be a letdown. But if you like a person because they're a phenomenal athlete or singer, just embrace that. It's like with Luther Vandross. Now we know that Luther Vandross was singing to more men than women through his lyrics and songs, but he's still a brilliant artist, right? Embrace that. Take that. We now know what Teddy Pendergrass meant. We said, turn off the lights. Turn them off. Turn them off. He didn't want to see certain things. May he rest in peace. I'm just playing, y'all. This jokes, okay? Let's lighten up a little bit. But with Tevin Campbell, questions of his sexuality, it's none of my business. But you got to know that the music industry is a predatory business. The show entertainment industry is a predatory business. It preys on people's weaknesses. A lot of lost souls. If you look at a lot of these celebrities have all type of abuse and issues, whether it be mental, spiritual, physical, sexual. And you know, a lot of times these celebrities like Michael Jackson, like what he said, to paraphrase him, he looking for love. He just want to be loved by everybody. I want to be loved by you. I want to be loved by you. I mean, a lot of these celebrities do things to get love, affirmation from people. And you look at the industry like Michael Jackson. I mean, he was a young man when he started out in entertainment. Not even young. He was a boy. He wasn't even 10 years old. I mean, they were singing at strip clubs, trying to, make the come up. He went to all these grown folks parties, you know what I'm saying? Industry parties. Ain't no telling what people was doing to Michael. It's like with Usher. Usher started out young. People tell me what happened to Usher recently with the allegations. But Usher came up in the industry as a young pup, like Daniel in the Lion's Den. These people will prey on you. This industry is fierce. Look at all these child actors ended up, suicidal, or they're, there's a lot of crazy stuff, dependent on drugs and stuff. This industry is wicked. It's wicked. You look at the music business, ask yourself, what was Lucifer's occupation in heaven? What was Lucifer's occupation in heaven? He was a master musician. So that started way back in the day to put people in a trance. Hypnotize me, hypnotize. Music is powerful. Music could be healing. It could be destructive. It could be instructive. But music has power. That's why there's so much to go into controlling artists and their art. You have artists that were killed for taking certain type of political stances, using their art to make people more aware, more conscious. John Lennon. I tell y'all about Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix gave a lot of money to the Black Panther Party. People don't know about that. Because how they promote Jimi Hendrix, they promote Jimi Hendrix as a dude that was too white for Black audiences, and he was too Black for white audiences. But when he played a concert, it was sold out with both Black and white. So what's really the problem here? I mean, he's a child of the blues. He came up through the blues and R&B and soul. He played behind the Sam Cookes, the Little Richards, the Isley Brothers, some other people, Curtis Mayfield. He played behind a lot of R&B soul acts. So how he's not Black enough, right? So you got to think about who is telling these narratives, who controls the story. But getting back to Tevin Campbell, he came out and said QuINcy didn't touch him. My thing is, you contrast that with Tupac allegedly saying QuINcy told him to sodomize him, supposedly. And Tupac is very interested. Tupac is back in the news cycle. Why is Tupac back? Tupac back. Tupac back. Why is he back in the news cycle? What is the distraction? Why you gotta remember, they used Tupac as the first hologram. Who is Tupac? Who was Tupac? It's like Michael King. I mean, Martin Luther King. Who was Dr. King really? People make deals, man. You gotta be careful of the deals you make. Because you make a deal with somebody, you might make a deal with somebody and say, you know what, you want to be famous, you want to be rich, you want to be successful. Okay, if we do this for you, you owe me a favor. This person might call in that favor later. I want you to sit next to so-and-so and put this in their drink to kill them. You can't say no, because you say no, they say, well, if you don't kill this one person, we'll kill your whole family. That's how that shit works. Like Godfather, we make them an offer they can't refuse. We made them an offer they could not refuse. So you look at Quincy Jones, Tupac got close to the family. You know, he was messing around, or he's allegedly was engaged, or whatever. He was the boyfriend. Or I don't know, because people like to play with stories, right? You don't know what they had a relationship, right? Him and Kadada Jones, and also Aaliyah and her family used to vacation with Quincy Jones and his family. She got two prominent people in the culture, Tupac and Aaliyah. They are dead within 5 years of each other. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that Quincy was involved, but you got to understand there's a high turnover in that industry, in that game. And you got to look at, like, for example, R. Kelly. People got this problem. R. Kelly got issues. He might have a whole bunch of personal issues, but I tell you what, he's a phenomenal musician. He's a great musician, and he never lied to y'all. What did he call himself? The Pied Piper, the Pied Piper, the Pied Piper. He already told you who he was. He's a snake charmer. He put you in a trance mom. He hypnotized you. Who was the Pied Piper of Hamlin? Do the research. Y'all keep on, man, I don't understand. He told y'all he was the Pied Piper. What did the Pied Piper do in the story? The city of Hamlin, I believe, in Germany, whatever. You look this up. Don't have to take my word for him. This is the mailman. Shit. The Pied Piper Hamlin was called in to Hamlin or whatever because the citizens had a rodent problem. So he played his flute or whatever it was, and he put the rodents in a trance and got them out the city, never to be seen again. When the town refused to pay the Pied Piper, he took his music, his flute, and put all the children in the town into a trance and led them out the town, never to be seen again. Pied Piper. Lucifer, master musician. You talking about the sexual rituals and stuff like that. Quincy Jones talked about people business. Like he talked about Marlon Brando having flings with James Baldwin and Richard Pryor and Marvin Gaye. And Richard Pryor widow came out and verified that it was true. Richard Pryor talks about, his, wild sex life in his book, his autobiography, 20-something years ago. You gotta understand, Richard Pryor grew up in a whorehouse. His mama was a hooker, his daddy was a trick, and his grandma was a madam. He grew up in a whole house in Illinois. He grew up in a whole house. So, I mean, he didn't have, like, look at the movie JoJo Dancer. Your Life is Calling. It's semi-autobiographical about Richard Pryor's actual life. But his grandma was a madam. She was a pimp. And Richard talked about being molested by a neighbor, sexually molested. See what I'm saying? You think about Richard Pryor, all the stuff he went through. All these celebrities, a lot of these celebrities have these backgrounds of sexual abuse and all types of shit happening to them. Domestic violence, very dysfunctional. But if you think about the fact that some of the greatest black men that America ever produced, they have associations with the whorehouse, with prostitutes. You think about, I just said Richard Pryor, Robert Church Sr., who was credited as being the first black millionaire of the South who saved Memphis from the yellow fever epidemic. He brought the first city charter. He brought back the city charter after it was taken away because yellow fever hurt Memphis so bad back in the late 19th century that the city lost its charter. It was no longer considered a city. So many people died here. But he invested a lot of real estate in Memphis. And, he almost got killed during the Memphis massacre of 1866, which was started by white Irish police officers, which basically decimated the black part of Memphis and Beale Street. He was shot in the head, point blank range, in his saloon on Beale Street, but somehow survived. And 10 years later, he saved the city from destruction. So he was the first black millionaire of the South. He invested in a lot of real estate, but what they don't really tell you all the time is that he owned houses of prostitution. A lot of his real estate were for whorehouses. Whorehouses. That's how he made a lot of money. And he making money off of white prostitutes and whatnot. So that's another story. You know, it's hard out here for a pimp. Not if you rob a church. So he hustled and flowed that. Okay. Louis Armstrong. His mama did some tricking. You know what I'm saying? She was a prostitute, according to some sources. His daddy was a trick. He never, had a good relationship with his father. Louis Armstrong was married 4 times. He used to play in Storyville and down in New Orleans. We got the Mardi Gras coming up. He ain't known for partying, but he used to have the red light district known as Storyville, the mythic Storyville where they said jazz was born in New Orleans. He was known hanging around there. One of his associates was a guy named Black Benny, who was a tall, dark-skinned black man who played bass drums during the parades, but he was a well-known pimp. Louis was married 4 times, like I said. His second wife, not his second wife, but his first wife, Daisy Parker, was a hooker, was a prostitute. So that made Louis Armstrong what? That made him a pimp, man. He was pimping, man. Louis Armstrong was pimping and blowing the horn. So his first wife was a prostitute, Daisy Parker. And when she got mad at him, she stole bricks at his head. I guess she missed him because if she connected on him more than often, he probably would not be able to be the Louis Armstrong that we came to know and love as Pops. So you got James Brown. He grew up in the whole house. We saw that movie that dramatized his life that came out with Chadwick Boseman playing him. He grew up in the whole house. His mama was a prostitute. So I just named you several prominent black men in American history. Robert Church, the first black millionaire of the South. Richard Pryor, all-time comedic great. Louis Armstrong, phenomenal musician. And James Brown. They all have relationships with hanging around houses of prostitution, growing up in or around houses of prostitution. And sexual abuse took place in those places. And Richard Pryor talked about a next door neighbor sexually abused him, a man, in his autobiography. So it don't surprise me when QuINcy talks about that, because also hanging around musicians, I know musicians I interview, they tell me things off record about the industry. That's why a lot of them not in the industry no more, because of the sexual rituals and all types of occult shit that goes on. Because y'all got to think about it. Get hip to Aleister Crowley. Get hip to that. I'm not going to take a lot of time going into Aleister Crowley, but he was an Englishman. He was into the dark arts, right? He practiced a thing called sex magic. And I'm sure that a lot of people in those type of industries that, QuINcy Jones operate in, they practice sex magic. Look that up. It's basically what it is about using sex to manifest what you want, to manifest. Like, let's say you want $1 million, you engage in some type of sexual ritual and you manifest that some type of way through your engagement. But I could tell you a story. It's not my story, but I read it in Huey Newton's, the Black Panther guy. I read it in his book, Revolutionary Suicide, in reference to James Baldwin. He talked about how him and Eldridge Cleaver went to a party for James Baldwin. Now, Eldridge Cleaver wrote a book called Soul on Ice. Y'all should check it out. Read it. Just read it. You should be open to researching and reading things. He wrote a book called Soul on Ice where he really went ham on James Baldwin. He did a hyper critique of James Baldwin. He basically ripped him a new one, like James Baldwin did to his mentor, Richard Wright. So they went to this party in honor of James Baldwin. So it was Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver. And then Huey said in his book, I'm paraphrasing, that Eldridge and James Baldwin embraced, and James Baldwin and Eldridge tongue kiss. They French kiss each other. They engage in a French kiss, excuse me. So, and Marvin Gaye, you hear things about people. I mean, Marvin Gaye, his father was a minister who was a cross-dresser. He used to dress in women's clothing in front of his kids. Last name is Gaye. It's kind of hard to deal with. Your father acts like that. You know what I'm saying? But Marvin was a phenomenal musician. I would say Marvin used his so-called, he used his mental illness to create phenomenal music. You know, he's singing to himself on his songs. You know, doo doo doo, yeah yeah, ooh 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 ooh. Y'all you know crossing. It's brilliant. I love it. We gotta learn. Black folks good. We good at using our so-called handicaps to create greatness. To be a black man in America is to be handicapped. You know, and handicap is not a bad thing because everybody got a handicap. And really, a handicap can be an advantage if you understand what the handicap that you have is and know how to leverage it. It's not being helpless because, like, you know, same thing. Quincy Jones talked about Ray Charles. I thought that was interesting because they have, you know, they've been knowing each other since they were teenagers. So he's talking about how Ray Charles was probably the most independent person you ever seen. Although he was physically blind, he could walk across the street by himself. He could tell the difference between a dime, a penny, a nickel, a quarter. I mean, he was very independent, but when it came time to try to get some women, he started bumping into walls. And so I thought that was hilarious. You know, when it's time to get some pussy, that's when he started becoming vulnerable. But other than that, this guy's in control of his destiny. I even had musicians tell me, like Calvin Newborn, who is the brother of Phineas Newborn, one of the greatest piano players in the history of the world from Memphis. He said that Ray Charles used to fly his own planes. Now he's legally blind, but he's allowed to fly his own plane. That's fascinating. But he said he had to get knocked out to get on the planes with Ray Charles. I don't blame him. So, what else can I say? Let me look up. Oh, he talked about the Beatles. You know how Quincy Jones talked about the Beatles. I just want to read what he said about the Beatles, which was hilarious to me. But I feel like it had a lot of truth in it, for different reasons, and other people might feel it had truth in it. Let me find it. The dude asked him in the Vulture magazine article, "What were your first impressions of the Beatles?" And he said that they were the worst musicians in the world. They were no playing motherfuckers. Paul was the worst bass player I ever heard. And Ringo, don't even talk about it. I remember once when we were in the studio with George Martin and Ringo, had taken 3 hours for a 4-bar thing he was trying to fix on a song. He couldn't get it. We said, mate, why don't you get some lager and lime, some shepherd's pie, and take an hour and a half and relax a little bit? So he did. And we called Ronnie Varell, a jazz drummer. Ronnie came in for 15 minutes and tore it up. Ringo comes back and says, George, can you play it back for me one more time? So George did, and Ringo says, that didn't sound so bad. And I said, yeah, motherfucker, because it ain't you. Great guy, though. Man, Beatles are so overrated because they're not the greatest, and they know it. Like white inferiority system. They love pumping up people, man. I tell you, they will pump up their own flaws and all. They'll whitewash the flaws and pump their own. The Beatles are not the greatest. They wrote some great songs though, but my songs I like by them sound better by black artists that I know. Like Al Green sung a song that they wrote called, I think it's called I want to touch your hand, or I want to hold your hand. Al Green got a version of that. It's so damn whoa, it's smoking. I believe it came out in the late 60s, maybe 69. Al Green does a version of that song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, that is phenomenal. With the Memphis sound, with that Memphis soul. Oh my God. And then Hey Jude, Wilson Pickett did a phenomenal version of Hey Jude. Down in that recording studios, what they now, Muscle Shoals. They did a documentary about a recording studio in Alabama while this great music came out of. And I believe Wilson Pickett recorded Hey Jude down there. Phenomenal. Southern fried soul version of Hey Jude. I like the Beatles. They all right, but they overhyped because like BB King was asked BB King what he thought of the Beatles. And he said all they did was re-import the blues, because he could say that because he taught the Beatles. Him and other blues musicians used to come over to England, and they'll be in Piccadilly Square showing these guys all the secrets to playing and mastering the blues. I'm talking about people like Paul McCartney and John Lennon and Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, when they were poor white trash, would come around these blues masters who are not appreciated in America from where they're from to learn this stuff. If you think about when the Otis Redding came over in the historic tour of Europe, of England, I believe it was like the last year he was alive, maybe it was 66 or 67. Back then, a lot of times the American music record labels would not put the faces of black artists on the cover art. Like, look, check out some of Miles Davis albums from the 50s. They might have some white people on the cover or something like that, but they would not put the actual faces of the black musicians. So the people in England did not know what Otis Redding looked like. They just loved his voice. They assumed maybe he was a white man. They didn't know what he looked like. Then he went over to England, and the rest is history. They fell in love with Otis Redding because people over there, they appreciate the authenticity. They want the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. America with this fuckery and fakery shit. So BB King just told the truth, because I'm gonna keep on repeating this stuff till y'all get it. Because a lot of times, like I said, if y'all want more content, support the platform. Buy the gear, make a donation, do something, man. Yeah, I can't give everything I know away all the time. But Little Richard, people laugh. I used to laugh and say, this man full of shit. He said he the king of rock and roll. Guess what? He is one of the kings of rock and roll. He's an architect. Because when Little Richard was doing his tour over in Europe, in London and stuff, he would have the Beatles and the Rolling Stones open up for him when they was living out their vans. They would open up for the king, the master, Little Richard, trying to play his songs, trying to sound like him. He said, you can't do my shit, but I'll allow you to get up on the stage and open up for me. Woo! Like I said, Jimi Hendrix used to play for Little Richard, but Little Richard said, there's gonna be one star in this band. Woo! You got to go, child. You got to go. That's what Little Richard told Jimi Hendrix. Then he'll say years later, I taught him everything he needs to know. I knew he's gonna be a star. Woo! So anyway, success has many authors, losing has none. is a bastard child, is a foster child. What I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it is fascinating. And I got to agree with Quincy Jones. I recently went down to Clarksdale, Mississippi, produced some of the greatest musicians of the 20th century and beyond. Ike Turner, Charles Wright, Express Yourself, and Nate Dogg, Smoke Weed Every Day. Rick Ross, Boss, the rapper. Shit. Muddy Waters went through Clarksdale. He's from Coahoma County, where Clarksdale is in. Grew up on the Stovall plantation. John Lee Hooker. Sam Cooke. He was born by the Sunflower River in a tenement. He was born by the Sunflower River in a tenement. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I ain't gonna stop because I think it's hilarious because y'all like infotainment. Y'all, I just can't tell y'all this stuff. Y'all like it raw, and y'all don't like it dry. Y'all like it raw. Y'all like entertainment. So I'm gonna just do it like that and hope to get the views up, because like I said, I'm sharing stuff with y'all that a lot of other folks ain't sharing. They tell you about all this stuff, but they not telling you about this stuff. And this is what my job is, to tell y'all about this. And speaking of Jimi Hendrix and talking about sex, Jimmy and the Blue Flames. Yeah. That's the band he formed after he left Little Richard. Jimmy and the Blue Flames, or something like that. But his best friend was from Memphis, Larry Lee. Larry Lee gave Jimi Hendrix his winter coat. Larry Lee and Jimi Hendrix met in Nashville. Jimi Hendrix was a patriot, was an army guy. He was part of the 101st Screaming Eagles out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. They were jumping out of airplanes. Jimi Hendrix was jumping out of airplanes. And right before his 30th jump, I think he jumped about 26 or 27 times out of airplanes for Uncle Sam. He broke his ankle and was honorably discharged. And he moved from Fort Campbell to Nashville, which is not far away. And he hooked up with Larry Lee, a brother from Memphis, who had got a baseball scholarship to Tennessee State University. They started gigging, playing for people like Aretha Franklin and Curtis Mayfield, like at the New Era Club when they came to town. And then Larry Lee got drafted and gave Jimmy his winter coat. And Jimmy went up to New York, tried to break in. And there's a story by Les Paul, the great musician and guitar innovator. He heard Jimi Hendrix, I believe, at a club in Greenwich Village. He was going to sign Jimi Hendrix, but he had to leave to take care of some business. And when he came back, he asked the person who ran the place what happened to Jimmy. He said that guy was terrible. We kicked him out or something. So Les Paul could have had the chance to sign Jimi Hendrix, but fate took Jimi Hendrix in September of '66, I believe, to England, and the rest is history. But he was homeless for 6 weeks in New York, and the only thing that kept him warm was Larry Lee's winter coat that he gave him. And Larry Lee came back from Vietnam, and soon he had a metal plate in his head. He survived. He barely survived Vietnam. I believe he received a phone call from Jimmy, and Jimmy asked him, "Do you want to play a concert in a place called Woodstock?" And the rest is history. Larry Lee actually led on a couple songs with Jimi Hendrix band at Woodstock, Gypsy Woman, Mastermind, and Why I Sing the Blues, or Why I Love the Blues, something like that. But anyway, that was his best friend. He's from Memphis. But Jimi Hendrix is an interesting story between Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis. And you can read this story in Miles Davis' autobiography. And the reason why I bring up Jimi Hendrix is because Quincy Jones talked about Jimi Hendrix or trying to work with Jimi Hendrix. I'm going to read some of what Quincy Jones said about that. And I'm going to tell you another story or another angle to look at as to why that didn't work out. Because Jimi Hendrix is arguably the greatest guitar star that ever lived, the greatest guitar hero of all time. I mean, he was ahead of his time. Let me see if I can find. I'm going to talk about that. But please feel free to support the platform once more. If you are being entertained by these stories and the way I do things, and I got a lot of things in the pipeline coming down soon. I'm trying to find. He said this about the journalist asked him in Vulture, wasn't Hendrix supposed to play on Gula Matari or whatever? He was supposed to play on my album, and he chickened out. He was nervous to play with Toots, Herbie Hancock, Hubert Laws, Roland Kirk. Those are some scary motherfuckers. Toots was one of the greatest soloists that ever fucking lived. The cats on my records were the baddest cats in the world, and Hendrix didn't want to play with them. I think there's another reason, and I'm bringing up the Miles Davis story why Jimmy might not had want to play with them. Because he's up there. All the guys that Quincy Jones named, like Toots, I guess his name is Tellman. I ain't gonna say it, but y'all look it up. And Herbie Hancock, Hubert Laws, Roland, these are some of the virtuosos of jazz. These are some of the virtuosos. Some of the greatest musicians that ever walked the planet. And Jimmy is among them. But I'm going to relate to y'all a story that you can find in Miles Davis' autobiography. Because Miles Davis wanted to play with Jimi Hendrix. As rumor has it that Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix, and Paul McCartney was supposed to do an album or some songs together. Paul McCartney from the Beatles, Miles Davis. You know who Miles Davis is, hopefully. Besides that horrible movie that came out that, misclassified his legend. Because if you just told the truth about Miles Davis, that would have been entertaining for 2 or 3 hours. But Jimi Hendrix, they were all supposed to do an album together or some songs. Miles Davis was introduced to Jimi Hendrix by this sister who became his wife named Betty Mabry, or Betty Davis, when she got married to Miles. And she was a very talented singer. She was a model. She's a very talented singer, but somehow she just didn't make it. Like I guess she was too ahead of her time because she was really pushing the envelope. She was kind of like a Madonna, Janet Jackson, Rihanna, Beyonce type. So she was definitely decades ahead of the game. I guess her stuff was too provocative for mainstream to really embrace because they didn't really push their stuff. A lot of stuff laid unreleased for years. So that was his woman, and she had a relationship with Jimi Hendrix. She knew Jimi Hendrix from just working in the industry and stuff like that. So Miles dug Jimmy. He wanted to work with Jimmy, and from my understanding, Miles left some compositions for Jimi Hendrix to look at to get his intake or input on. And so when Miles came back hours later, he asked Jimmy, what did he think of his compositions? And Jimmy basically said, I can't read music. I can't read music. And Miles, I think made fun of Jimmy. And Jimmy took it out on his woman. Because according to his acquaintances, he had a horse dick. so he fucked Miles' woman. Allegedly. Miles believed that Jimi Hendrix fucked his woman because he made fun of the fact he could not read. And Miles said he had a thing that he does not mess with people, women that he want to work with. That's his thing because I believe he was accused by Max Roach of having a thing with Abby Lincoln, who was Max Roach's wife at one point. I believe Max Roach confronted him about messing around with Abby Lincoln, the great Abby Lincoln, excuse me. And Miles said he didn't do it, but Miles had this thing that if he thought you was a brilliant musician and he wanted to work with you, messing with somebody else's woman or girl is a no-no. But Miles thought that that Betty and Jimmy had a thing that they screwed a couple times. Because the reason why he thought that was because if you read the autobiography, Jimmy's girlfriend, I think, confronted Miles and told Miles that Jimmy was sleeping with Betty and that she wanted to fuck him, have revenge sex. She wanted to have a revenge fuck or two. And Miles wouldn't do it. He would not. That's why he believed that it actually happened. But they said Jimmy was hung like a horse. So the white man, when he went to England, they were jealous of him, not because he was just a guitar god. Not only could he outplay them on the concert stage, he could outfuck them in the bedroom. So they saw him as a big threat. America got the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Europe or England got Jimi Hendrix. And he died just several days before the 4th anniversary of him getting his big break in England under questionable circumstances. That's Jimi Hendrix. And Miles Davis was planning to work with Jimi Hendrix on an album back in 1970. He had plans to work with Jimi Hendrix on an album in the 1970s, but Jimmy died, of course, in September 1970. So that never happened. But he always gave his wife Betty the credit for introducing him to Jimi Hendrix, sliding the Family Stone, all that stuff, because that's how he was able to start what is now known as jazz fusion. He had the classic albums, Bitches Brew and On the Corner was influenced by the funk movement that his wife introduced him to. So that's just something you might not, may have not known or could know, but I'll suggest y'all read the autobiography of Miles Davis. It's worth a read. And I wish somebody would do a movie based on his autobiography versus the BS that came out a couple years ago. Because like I told y'all, Black history fact is better than science fiction or a Hollywood movie. So I believe that Jimi Hendrix chickened out on Quincy Jones because he couldn't read music. And them guys are jazz musicians and they could read music. Them guys was like, they were proficient at reading music. Because a lot of jazz musicians were proficient at reading music because they were not allowed to play in their cities or towns, orchestras, or symphonies because they were Black. I think Charles Mingus wanted to play in the LA Symphony, but they wouldn't let him play in the LA Symphony because he's a Black man. I believe the same thing about Eric Dolphy. Some of the great jazz geniuses of the 20th century became jazz geniuses because they could not play in these orchestras playing so-called classical music in their town. So maybe Jimi Hendrix chickened out because he couldn't read music. It's like a lot of great musicians can't read music. They feel it. They could play it. They're proficient, but they're not proficient at reading music. Quincy Jones once talked about, I was looking at this Count Basie documentary, and Quincy Jones said he was working with Count Basie. He gave him some stuff to read, and he realized that Count Basie could not read music. Now, Count Basie Orchestra is one of the greatest orchestras of all time. Count Basie is one of the greatest musicians of all time, and he's playing at a high level, but he could not read music. You know, Count Basie is a prodigy of Fats Waller, a virtuoso piano player, and he could not read music. So that's not unusual. You know what I'm saying? Especially, come out to church, whatever. You got, think about Sidney Bechet, who was Louis Armstrong's rival for one of the all-time New Orleans greats, right? Sidney Bechet could play his ass off on soprano saxophone and clarinet, but he could not read no music. But he became a star. He was an international star. He is considered one of France's heroes. He's born in America, but he's a national hero in France. They got monuments and everything in his honor. He's buried in France. So that's Sidney Bechet. Look him up. So they said Sidney Bechet, the first jazz review in history, was written by the Swiss conductor named Ernst Ansermet, and he wrote it in response to hearing Sidney Bechet play. Sidney Bechet was going to places like China and Russia back in the 19-teens and 20s. This is a black man from Louisiana going to these places and playing jazz. Amazing. So I know I'm kind of like, whoa, Ron, you off the track here. I thought we were talking about Quincy Jones. This is talking about Quincy Jones. Jazz. And his critique of what's going on right now, I believe in a lot of ways is spot on when it comes to the music. You know what I'm saying? Because people are not studying the roots and the history of the music. If I talk about, he said he was at that famous Massey Hall concert in Toronto with Charlie Parker, Charles Mingus, Max Roach, Dizzy Gillespie, and Bud Powell. These are the founding fathers of modern music, of modern jazz. And he said they only got paid $1,100. He said he saw the contract. Said, yeah, man, I saw the contract after the whole band made $1,100. I'll never forget that. At the time, it was just another gig. I believe he probably was there. You know what I'm saying? I believe he was at that concert. I mean, think about it. We talk about Monique and Netflix. This is one of the greatest concerts that ever happened in the history of the world. And they only got paid $1,100. Now, I believe Charles Mingus recorded the concert through his record label. And I think he had to redub his parts, his bass parts, because you couldn't hear his bass. But I say all this to say, y'all should check out that concert. It was brilliant. Black men as God. These black men were gods, right? And you talk about, Quincy Jones, you can't shit on his music. He is a talented musician. And jazz, like I talked about before, Charlie Parker, he practiced for 11 to 15 hours a day for 4 years to get to that level of virtuosity. So you can't shit on Birdman, the real Birdman, the real one. But yeah, I think Jimi Hendrix probably didn't want to play with Quincy Jones because he just couldn't read music at that level, and he was embarrassed about it because Miles, like I told you, it's in his autobiography. He made fun of Jimmy about not being able to read music, and Jimmy took it out on his woman with his horse dick. So, I'm gonna try to look at the chat room as we go forward, because I'm my old place with Quincy Jones. Michael Jackson, when he said about Michael Jackson being greedy, that could possibly be true. Because everybody steals. Even the bebop guys, Quincy guys, they stole other people's songs and flipped they changed the chord progressions and stuff like that. So what used to be Cherokee was Charlie Parker Love, he turned into Coco. So it used to be Cherokee, but because of the way he flipped it, he remixed it, he turned it into Coco. You can check out that Coco, K-O-K-O. Just look all this stuff up, Charlie Parker, Coco, then play Cherokee. So just look all this stuff up, man, because like I said, there's so much information out there. It is quite possible that Michael Jackson was influenced by Donna Summer's State of Independence for Billie Jean. But the thing about it is, what I love about Michael Jackson, he was a student of the game. Just like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, they did not go to college, but they are basketball historians. They know who are the great ones were. That's how they measure themselves. That's the measuring stick. You got to know the greats in the field that you're trying to pursue and where you stand in relation with those greats. Like Michael Jackson had a saying. He said, study the greats. And Michael Jackson was a student of the game. He studied the greats. And like Picasso said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. He was a master thief. That's what greatness is. And not only did he steal, he put his own step on the damn thing. You understand? He took from Jackie Wilson and James Brown and Fred Astaire and all the greats that came before, and he made it his own. And he took other people's stuff and made it his own. It's kind of like Duke Ellington, arguably America's greatest composer. Duke Ellington was accused of stealing. He was a thief. According to people in his band, he would take people's ideas and he made them to songs. And people accuse him of stealing their intellectual property. But these would be ideas that would be lost to time. And what Duke Ellington did, he made them into songs for posterity. It's like what Jay-Z said. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song. So he did, as a historian, as a documentarian, he preserved their ideas for posterity. So you could be humming something and Duke take that and he expands that into a song, a work of art. So he was also accused of stealing people's shit. And that's not unusual. Betty Boop. Betty Boop. Oh. Betty Boop is based on a black woman. Check out the lawsuit behind that. There was a white woman that said that she was owed money because they stole her Betty Boop identity. She said that she was the inspiration for Betty Boop, but kind of found out for Betty Boop was also inspired from the act of a obscure black woman who, they don't know what happened to her. But her manager testified on her behalf in court that, hey, Betty Boop came out of her. So you look that stuff up. I'm not going to have time. I could take the time, but, that could be another broadcast, I guess. I don't know. But I want to do the Quincy Jones thing. And I believe Quincy is greedy. That's why he got 28 Grammys. Quincy took people's shit from my understanding. I'm not, allegedly, the stuff that he did on Roots was done by J.J. Johnson. The stuff he did on Roots, Roots is the original Roots, the music, the score. My understanding that it was actually J.J. Johnson, the great bebop trombonist and composer, who did the bulk of the music for Roots, and Quincy got the credit for it. That's not unusual. It's like Renaissance art. A master Renaissance artist has a studio of apprentices, and he might have a work, but his apprentices do the work. They study his style, and they complete the work, but he gets the credit for it. Like, let's say you Raphael or Leonardo da Vinci, he had proteges or apprentices working on this work you was commissioned for, and their names are not on the work, but you get the credit for it. And it's kind of like Quincy Jones was good at doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, he don't look at problems as problems. He look at it as puzzles, because you look at a problem as a problem, it stresses him out. So he break it down to pieces of a puzzle. So Quincy Jones is good at, it's kind of like Dr. Dre. From my understanding, Dr. Dre don't come up with all them beats by his own. But because he has such a prominent name, his name is put on saying produced by Dre. It could have been somebody else from the streets or whatever, or from Juilliard that actually did the actual beat. But because it's Dr. Dre, he might have just mixed it or whatever he did. Now it's his because he's the bigger name. Quincy Jones, but J.J. Johnson was a big name in his circles. But y'all should check out J.J. Johnson. I believe he committed suicide back in 2000 because he was dealing with a chronic illness, a terminal illness, from my understanding. But J.J. Johnson was one of the great modern jazz artists, one of the great bebop trombonists, if not the greatest bebop trombonist from Indianapolis. But he actually did the music, from my understanding, from my sources. I'm not saying I don't want to. He said, I ain't slandering nobody, but I heard that J.J. Johnson actually did the music for Roots, and Quincy got the credit for it. It's an interesting game. You know, like Johnny Ace, one of my favorite singers of all time, who was from Memphis, who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the late great Johnny Ace. He wrote some songs, but his names are not on the songs as a author, as a contributor. But the person who ran the label he was on, Don Roby, who had no musical talent, his names are on all these songs. So you see, it's important way for us as Black people and for people in general to build wealth, and generational wealth is control and ownership of intellectual property. We must get in the game of controlling our intellectual property. From my understanding, the great Fetz Waller used to sell and resell his songs, his music compositions on Tin Pan Alley. Tin Pan Alley was the music industry back in the day, where they were selling like companies. This is back in the early 20th centuries. Tin Pan Alley. So they said that Fetz Waller would sell the same composition over and over again for $40 a piece. They just changed the title of the composition, of the music composition. But this man wrote Ain't Misbehaving. He wrote a lot of great hits, a lot of standards, and he gets no intellectual royalties from it. He gets no royalties. His family, his estate gets nothing from his artistic achievements. Now, he was living good while he was alive. He died on a train, I believe, in Kansas City back in 43. I think he had pneumonia or whatever, but his family don't get none of that. Those songs he had could have been a cornerstone, could have been a foundation for creating generational wealth for his family. But a lot of Black musicians did that. Think about, example, Otis Redding. We always talk about Sam Cooke, but Otis Redding owned his own publishing company. Otis Redding wrote the song Respect that Aretha Franklin made popular. Otis Redding controlled his publishing. And he made $1 million after taxes in his last year of life. And he was trying to get other musicians, other Black musicians, to take control of their intellectual property. And the next thing you know, he died in a plane crash, crashed into a lake in Wisconsin, frozen to his damn seat at the age of 26. And I believe he's buried outside of Macon, Georgia, on his 300-acre farm. So this guy at 26 had to figure out. They say he called a press conference saying that Black music will be controlled by Black people from now on. And the next thing you know, he's dead at 26. Because Sam Cooke, another story, like I keep on. We talked about Sam Cooke before, but I think it's worth noting that his business partner, Alan Klein, got into a lot of legal lawsuits with the Beatles and the Rolling Stone. He controlled their intellectual property, and they went to court many times over. But Sam Cooke, Alan Klein started a company called Tracy Limited, which was named after Sam Cooke's youngest daughter, and Sam Cooke didn't even own the company. He had Sam Cooke intellectual property in that company and everything. And when he died, his wife sold up she gave up the rest of his publishing rights and stuff to Alan Klein, his so-called business partner. Alan Klein was just like another Clive Davis, Jewish guys from the East Coast who was just lawyers. They were not musicians. Clive Davis is just a damn lawyer. Alan Klein was a lawyer, but yet these guys control so many artists' intellectual properties. They control so many people. A lot of people they work with, they died, real young and stuff like that. There's a story about Clive Davis taking Janis Joplin, the white, blues rock singer, into a room by herself with him, and she signed a contract. There were witnesses there that said he just took her into a room. I don't know what he did. He made an offer she couldn't refuse. She signed a contract. Then next thing you know, she dead. So it is what it is. So, it's a cold game, man. Y'all want this fame thing? How bad you really want the fame? Are you willing to kill people for the fame? Are you willing to kill yourself for it? How bad do you want this thing? But QuINcy, it takes one to know one. Him and Michael was real close. He called Michael greedy, but he's just as greedy, if not more so. He wants to live to be 120 years old. He wants to do all these things that he's doing. He made a lot of money off a lot of people. So it is what it is. It's the game. But what I was gonna say, because there's a lot of points of departure I could take There's a lot of points of departure I could take. I mean, I hope everything's coming out as good as possible. I mean, it'll get better as I come along in this process. This is very therapeutic for me to talk to people or to share my thoughts about these things, as they come to me. But y'all should check out, really look at what Quincy Jones is saying, what he's not saying. The Clintons. Let me see what he said about the Clintons. And it's something about the Clintons I don't like. Something like, and I think he kind of put his finger on the pulse with that. Why people don't really care for the Clintons, even though more people voted for her in the popular vote. But I just think a lot of people don't really do their homework on who the Clintons really are anyway. And so, okay. The interviewer in Vulture magazine or vulture.com asked him, "You just mentioned the Clintons who are friends of yours. Why is there still such visceral dislike of them? What are other people not seeing in Hillary, for example, that you see?" It's because there's a side of her. When you keep secrets, they backfire. Like what secrets? This is something else I shouldn't be talking about. See, he's not senile. He's not, y'all keep, well, he just got the mint. No. He know when to hold them and when to fold them, like Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold them. Know when to fold them. You sure seem to know a lot. I know too much, man. So, yeah, Clinton's from Chicago area, Chicagoland. Her master teacher, her mentor was Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky is interesting because a lot of times the right wing media want to tie Obama to Saul Alinsky. The problem is Saul Alinsky died when Obama was still young, a young kid who had yet to go to Chicago. He probably in Hawaii still when Saul Alinsky died. You should check out, I think, his Playboy interview or some interview he did, Saul Alinsky did right before he died. Saul Alinsky was a community organizer in Chicago, but he was trained by the best in organizing, catching organized crime. Saul Alinsky's mentor was Frank Nitti. Frank Nitti, who ran the outfit, Chicago's outfit, who was Al Capone's right-hand man. That's how he learned how to organize people and manipulate the system, from Frank Nitti. And so Saul Alinsky personally selected Hillary Clinton to train and to mentor and to nurture. Hillary was a Republican. She was a proud Republican. Her father, he was a proud Republican. He died a Republican. She was a Barry Goldwater girl. She campaigned for Barry Goldwater. They all try like she's some civil rights person. She was a Republican, conservative, make America safe and great and law and order again. That type of Republican. Bill Clinton is interesting. And it started to make sense to me about Bill Clinton that he might be a Rockefeller. Because y'all know that they say that Bill Clinton's biological father died in some horrible car accident. Somehow that he suffocated. He was lying face down, unconscious in the mud, and he suffocated and he died. But my understanding, that some people believe that he's a Rockefeller because there was a Rockefeller who was governor of Arkansas, Winthrop Rockefeller. Look him up. And you think about the decisions that the Clintons made on his watch. Bill Clinton repealed the Glass-Steagall Act that FDR put in place during the Great Depression to stop the banks from taking advantage of people, personal finances. Then he also basically the Clintons traded organized labor for Goldman Sachs. They favored the financial institutions and whatnot, the world bankers, over homegrown workers. And he also signed the NAFTA trade agreement, which has been detrimental to the labor class in America. So these people, and they got like a long body list. So many people connected to the Clintons have ended up mysteriously dead, including the billionaire couple recently in, I believe, in Canada. I don't know if it was Toronto. They found them dead. They were murdered, but they had a connection with the Clintons. You look at the work they're doing down, or the stuff they're doing in Haiti. They're like feudal lords down there. And you talk about Mena, Arkansas. Mena, Arkansas is interesting because when Bill Clinton was governor, the CIA had an airfield, or that they used to bring in drugs from South America. One cat was known as Barry Seal. He was a drug trafficker for the CIA. They did that movie American Made with Tom Cruise, which is like the best of Hollywood fiction, because it makes you think that Barry Seal was just approached by the CIA when he was a TWA captain pilot. And he was the youngest in history at 24, but he was CIA since he was a teenager. He used to be a part of Louisiana Civil Patrol that was ran by David Ferrie, who was a key player in the Kennedy assassination conspiracy. David Ferrie was played by Joe Pesci in Oliver Stone's JFK. The weird looking white man with the brushy eyebrows and the wigs. And but Barry Seal used to run planes for the CIA to Cuba when he was a teenager. This dude was doing this like he was 15 or 16 years old, running planes to Cuba and stuff. And they said that he was also involved in the Kennedy assassination, that he was one of the people that were flying people who were connected to the assassination out of Dallas that day. So Barry Seal had a direct phone line to George H.W. Bush vice president's office. So he knew the Bushes well. And then he was assassinated in Baton Rouge, because he was willing to testify about what he knew, because he had, been working in the government for a long time. So you got that type of stuff with Ron Brown, so many other things, like that woman who used to work at the White House as an intern, I believe, when Monica Lewinsky was there, and she ended up leaving the White House. She was from Baltimore. This white lady, I think she was a white lesbian, and she got killed in that crazy Georgetown Starbucks robbery, supposedly. She was killed along with her other co-worker. She was a manager at the Starbucks in Georgetown. This happened, I believe, either 96 or 97. I don't know if her name was Mary Mahoney or whatever. But anyway, look all that stuff up. It's very fascinating. And I wouldn't trust the Clintons either. I wouldn't trust them to fix my food or anything. So Quincy Jones is not C now. He know what to talk about and what not to talk about. And speaking of Marvin Gaye, the family of Marvin Gaye came out in a response to Quincy Jones. Let's see if I can find that response. One of Marvin Gaye's sisters came out and fired back at Quincy. If I can find it, I think I can find it. I don't know if I can find it. Somebody sent me. I just can't. I don't see it now. But they basically said that he shouldn't have said what he said. But one thing that's brilliant about Quincy Jones, a lot of people that he talk about are dead that can't defend themselves. So we'll never know all there is to know. But I think some of what he's saying is true, and some of the other stuff, like the Malcolm X thing, should be questioned, because Malcolm was not around on the streets to be able to sell drugs to anybody in Detroit. And Quincy would be too young unless he was born not in 1933, but like in 1923. That's another story. So let me see. Let me go to the chat room. Thank you all. I have not been looking at the chat room right now. I've just been talking, running my mouth. But now is a good time than ever to go to the chat room and see what you all are saying about the show and what you think about it. Hope I got some good feedback. Who was the black man who died serving the Clinton administration? That was Ron Brown. He died in that so-called plane crash. But Dick Gregory got the actual photographs of a bullet hole in his head that suggests he was assassinated. And a stewardess did survive the so-called plane crash, but as she was being airlifted to the hospital, her neck was broken. So they let you know all you need to know about the Clinton regime in a nutshell, because Ron Brown was going to expose the administration's connections to China. And it ended up coming out when Al Gore was running for president anyway. but Ron Brown threatened the president. And I hate this. It's like one of them bad movies, you know, when you confront the person and say, I know you did some dirty shit, and I'm going to tell the authorities on you. Why not just be quiet about what you know and seen, and just go tell the authorities? Stop trying to threaten motherfuckers when you are on their home court. And Ron Brown, he allegedly threatened Bill Clinton because he wanted to keep his son out of jail because he knew he was going down. He allegedly threatened Bill Clinton about what he knew about his unethical stuff, business dealings with China, and that cost him his life. And this happened right before the Lewinsky scandal. So thank you, Dinah Judah. First time here. Hope it won't be your last time here. Thank you for the joy on the show. I'm reading the chat online on my computer. That's where I'm reading the chat from. Yeah. Black folks got no friends. I'm be honest with you. Y'all talking about allies and working with other people. Nah, if you're not a friend to yourself, you have no friends. Like Dr. John Henry Clark said, if you what he said, what Dr. John Henry Clark? I'm gonna paraphrase what he said. If you cannot look at the mirror and if you look at the mirror and stare back at no, never mind. I'm not, but black folks really don't have no friends. We gotta know the difference between an ally and a friend. And if you can't be a friend to yourself in your own cause, you know, what we tend to do is we want to always get with somebody else's cause and put their cause before our own, and then we get nothing out the deal. We gotta stop doing that because time is too valuable. You are too valuable to be wasting your time with folks who won't give your issues the time of day. So we gotta learn how to stop doing that. Yeah, the picture about Miles was garbage. It was entertaining. I'll be honest. It's like they make these movies. It's like the Tupac movie that came out last year. Um, I'm an Oregon Trail generation. I remember playing the Oregon Trail in school, so I call myself the Oregon Trail, a member of the Oregon Trail generation. I don't remember. We didn't have no social media, all this stuff. We wasn't into computers like everybody is now. It's like babies are already born with everything downloaded or uploaded in them. Because I was talking to somebody last night. The babies being born now, they look different, they move different, they even smell different. They different. They've been programmed a different way. But millennials are being doing a disservice because they're being set up for failure because simply for the fact that we're not telling them the history about stuff. We're not giving them a proper historical narrative to really benefit from and to learn and analyze and to really develop their critical thinking skills. So people are blaming millennials for a lot of stuff that they're not at fault for. You know, the baby boomers, they basically destroy any type of inheritance that we supposed to have. The baby boomers got a lot of great things that they did not pass down to what is now known as millennials. You know, the economy has changed. Back in the 60s, you had a thriving, a booming economy. It was expanding. There was something to fight for in terms of jobs, of education. A lot of people were going to school with little to no debt back in the 60s. And now school will cost you basically a body part to go to school now. You talking about some damn Illuminati. These student loans, they the Illuminati. College debt is the Illuminati, goddamn it. You selling your goddamn soul. So we're not educating people about stuff. So I really believe that that's why it's so important to support platforms like the one that I'm promoting and supporting, because I'm trying to give y'all a different way of viewing the world. Y'all keep on talking about what did Gregory think about it, but what you think about it. Why don't you spend some time with yourself sometimes and just sit in silence? Just sit in silence and see all the things that will be revealed to you if you just be quiet and just sit somewhere, not trying to control anything, not trying to think about anything. Just let stuff come to you. And there you have it. You'll have your magic glasses if you want it. But once you put these motherfuckers on, like Baba Dick used to say, you can't take them off. And I can't force somebody else to see the things that I'm seeing. But by me sharing some of this information with you all, it is my hope, it is my sincere hope that y'all will go do y'all due diligence and look up the information yourself and really empower yourself with the information and spread it to your people. It's like like, for example, the Quincy Jones thing. I mean, people making 1,000 videos, but I just told y'all some new stuff. Regardless of what I talk about for the rest of this segment, I just told you some things that you should know, that you should look up and think about, that everybody else is glossing over or don't have the understanding to know because we're not students of history like we should be. So the Tupac thing was good for millennials, but it wasn't good to me. In a way, it wasn't bad either. I think people were overdoing it and trying to destroy the movie because the movie was not a bad movie. It was just like, if you a real Tupac fan, if you over 30 years old, you know, you could remember, things like where you was at and what you was doing when Tupac got shot. You remember certain things. I remember the box. They used to have a thing called the box, or it used to be known as the jukebox, where you can request music videos to play. I remember when Thuggish Ruggish Bone came out. You thought that the Bone, Thugs and Harmony was bigger than the Beatles. I thought they were bigger than the Beatles because they kept on playing Thuggish Ruggish Bone on the box like it was going out of style. So programming is real. We all been programmed. Uh, you know, that's right, Sean Henry. Thank you so much. He said, Brother Ron does his work. Yeah, talking and responding to Jimmy Wallace. This is our history month. Set the rifle down, a sack. Ha ha ha. Ain't nobody else having this convo with us. And ain't nobody really talking with y'all about this stuff. I noticed that. I'm not interested. Like I said, I'm the mailman. This is the year of the mailman. You don't have to be a hero worshiper of me. You don't have to worship me in my feet or wash my feet like Jesus. You don't have to do none of that. I just want to share with you all what I have learned. And I try to give y'all little crumbs to go along and pick up for yourself and figure it out. And yeah, like John Henry said, many great musicians cannot read music. But why should that be the standard though? Who said that you gotta be able to read music to be a great musician? I told y'all Jimi Hendrix, arguably the greatest guitar player who ever lived, could not read music. Something that, I guess kind of, and also he played his guitar upside down because he was left-handed. I'm left-handed. He played his guitar upside down because he's left-handed. Paul McCartney and I believe John Lennon are both left-handed, if I'm not mistaken. The three key presidential candidates of 1992, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Ross Perot were all left-handed. Barack Obama was left-handed. Richard Pryor was left-handed. Babe Ruth. But anyway, I say all this to say, this Bobby being left-handed, I'm a special motherfucker. Thank you so much. Been a great audience. Yeah, the greats need to have a great ear. A lot of great musicians. Like, it's this great jazz piano player named Earl Gardner. The guy was badass. He's from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, a lot of great jazz greats came out of Pittsburgh. But Earl Gardner could not read music, but he was like such a popular musician. He was well respected by a lot of musicians in the jazz field. And he had that song, I guess, Misty. I believe that was the soundtrack for Clint Eastwood's directorial debut, where he played a jazz radio DJ who had a fan who was stalking him. It's called Misty, I believe. And he got that title for his movie from Earl Gardner's jazz standard, Misty. But Earl Gardner made a great living playing his piano and was highly influential, but he couldn't read music. Let's see. I don't think James Brown probably couldn't read music, but he had a phenomenal feel for the music. James Brown actually saw himself as a jazz musician in a lot of ways. He did a great album with Oliver Nelson. A lot of y'all probably ain't hip to Oliver Nelson. If Oliver Nelson lived past his 40s, if Oliver Nelson was able to live past his 40s, I don't think Quincy Jones would be as big as he is. Because y'all say, who is Oliver Nelson? Look him up. Oliver Nelson was phenomenal arranger and composer. He played, I believe, played alto sax, but he was in the same league of Quincy Jones. You know, he did movie scores and stuff for TV, and he did James Brown's jazz album, which I like, and he did one of my favorite jazz albums of all time, Blues and the Abstract Truth. All-star jazz musician, Jam. He did that. I believe Blues and the Abstract Truth is right up there with Kind of Blue, which is arguably the greatest jazz album of all time. It's near Blues and the Abstract Truth is near there. And he did some songs under Dr. King. Y'all should check it out. Let me try to find a song that I want y'all to check out, and hopefully y'all will listen to it and tell me what y'all think about it. He did a song, Oliver Nelson. Remember that word Oliver Nelson was in the same league as Quincy Jones? It's kind of like when Clifford Brown died. No, Quincy Jones was in Lionel Hampton band. I believe he played with Clifford Brown. I don't know if a lot of y'all know who Clifford Brown Sr. was, but Clifford Brown was a phenomenal musician, was a phenomenal technician on the trumpet. And he died, unfortunately, in a tragic car accident on the Pennsylvania Turnpike back in 1956. Him, Richie Powell, who was the younger brother of jazz giant, the great piano player Bud Powell, and Richie Powell's wife, they all three of them died in this car accident. He was just like 26 years old, or 25. Either 25 or 26 years old. But Oliver Nelson was like that. You know, had he lived a little bit longer, there's no telling the type of awards and music projects he would have done. But he did a great song in honor of Dr. King. He got a great album that I would suggest you all. Blues and the Abstract Truth is a great album y'all should listen to if you're into jazz. But also, he had Black, Brown, and Beautiful. It's an album he did, Black, Brown, and Beautiful. Was really is dedicated to the life and sacrifice of Dr. King. And there's a song on there called Martin Was a Man, a Real Man, that Spike Lee actually used in his updated version of She Gotta Have It, which is a series on Netflix. I might do a review of She Gotta Have It. I saw it like a couple months ago. I thought it was fascinating, but he had like a good soundtrack on all the shows. And so I found this song, but Oliver Nelson did a song called Martin Was a Man, a Real Man. And the instrumental is amazing because Spike Lee played it in honor of the ancestors, like the sister who was the lead character in the She Gotta Have It series. She visited the cemeteries in New York, and she visited the graves of famous Black people like Malcolm and Betty Shabazz, like the King Olivers, like the people like Black history giants. She visited their graves, and they were playing that song as tribute. And I thought it was very fitting. So yeah, Black, Brown, and Beautiful is the album. Oliver Nelson song in particular, Martin Was a Man, a Real Man. So it's good. I like the fact that Quincy Jones is talking about this stuff now because he's putting a spotlight on things and on folks and on people and places that should be never forgotten about. It's actually I enjoy both the interviews. Like I said, I don't have no ill will towards Quincy Jones at all, but I do question some of his accuracy on how he recalled things, especially as it relates to Malcolm X being in prison. And he told me he met Malcolm X when he was 18, buying drugs off him. But oh yeah, the greedy comment. I always want when Quincy Jones talking about greedy, it's the nature of the beast. America eats its young. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these people, high profile people, they are dying from big pharma. They're not dying from street drugs. A lot of time when people die from street drugs, it's not because of the drug itself. It's because of the chemicals that's used to cut the drugs. That's what's killing people. It's the chemicals and stuff they use to cut the drugs, not the drug itself. But in big pharma, it's actually the medicine that's killing you. The medicine, the sin is in the medicine. The sin is in the medicine. So you talk about Michael Jackson, and I think it's funny you compare and contrast the GQ interview that Quincy did with the Vulture interview. The GQ interview is more PG-13, and the Vulture interview is raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. It's raw. It's ODB raw. And it's good to care. But then, like, just look at it. Just, but always remember, why now? Why is Quincy coming out with all this stuff now? It's because he's trying to promote some projects. He got a Netflix special coming out soon. He got some movie projects, got other things he's doing. He's trying to get Donald Glover to play him in like a mini series about his life. And I think Donald Glover would do a great Quincy Jones. I think he would be great for Quincy Jones. I think it would be great if they could get Donald Glover to be a part of that project. So, I mean, he got stuff coming out right now. And also, it's his Uranus return. Like Dick Gregory, the popularity that Baba Dick Gregory experienced at the end of his life is because he lived long enough to receive his Uranus return. And Quincy Jones is right now at his Uranus return. He probably been there for several years. Like I said, we don't know how old Quincy Jones really is. We don't know how old he could have been on the goddamn Titanic. I don't know. We don't know how old Quincy Jones is. I don't think Quincy Jones know how old he is. Let me see. I want to tell you what Uranus return is right quick. They can understand why Quincy Jones is getting all this shine right now, besides just promoting his stuff. A quick definition of Uranus return. Let's see. Get a quick definition. And thank y'all once again, but please feel free to support the platform and to help us keep on keeping on, because we're doing some projects. Like I said, we're not on this podcast. A lot of cats that be out here running their mouths and podcasting. But we're doing real work in the community as well, too. Like we just got to prove the historic marker for the victims of the Fort Pillow Massacre of 1864. We are honoring the righteous ancestors here in We All Be. And it was like, it was so happy because we actually met with the Shelby County Historical Commission on Thursday, which would have been my maternal grandmother's 82nd birthday. And we got into a 2-hour plus drawed out thing because white folks are still sensitive about the Civil War, as we all know. White people are still sensitive about that. And also, we're dealing with a legacy of Nathan Bedford Forrest. As you all may or may not know, Nathan Bedford Forrest, we took down the statue. Memphis recently took down the statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest, which stood on one of our busiest streets in the city for 112 years. They took that statue down back in December, which was over his remains. Him and his wife remains were buried under the statue. The remains are still in the park, or the cemetery, whatever you want to call it. They have not removed the remains, but the statue has been moved to a undisclosed location. Nathan Bedford Forrest was the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Also, he was a prolific slave trader. He was the Sam Walton of slave traders. On Adams Street, which is now the home of juvenile court in Memphis, one of the most corrupt juvenile courts, according to the experts in the country. His slave market was on Adams Street. And he had one of the largest, if not the largest, slave market in America before the Civil War. And he was a general for the Confederacy. And some people consider him a military genius. Some people consider him a war criminal. But he was known by his enemies by the nickname the Devil. And he was also known as the Wizard of the Saddle. Like the stuff he did on horseback as a cavalry leader is still studied in military academies and institutes around the world. So they actually adopted what he did on horseback because he was so efficient and proficient at being great at riding horseback and doing military science on horseback, whatever. They adopted that to tanks. In World War II, for example. So we it's been like almost 3 years. We've been in the process of trying to honor the ancestors, but this is like been a couple years of hard work and being consistent, led by my mom, Sister Callie Hurd, who is the vice president the We All Be Group Incorporated, we finally got the historic marker approved to honor the victims of Nathan Bedford Forrest. And the Fort Pillow Massacre was one of the lowest points of civil war in American history. On April 12th, 1864, General Nathan Bedford Forrest led anywhere between 1,500 to 2,300 Confederate rebels or soldiers to overrun a fort called Fort Pillow in Henry, Tennessee, where Alice Haley grew up in. And they massacred close to 300 black soldiers, women, and children. And you know, he allegedly gave the order no quarter, meaning no surrender, because Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, said that if any black soldier was caught, they will be either killed or returned to slavery. So basically, the black soldiers had no choice but to fight. And so a lot of them were drowned in the Mississippi River, shot in the back. A lot of them were decapitated or beheaded. Their eyes got gouged out or put out by bayonets, those long knives on rifles. Some of them were burned alive and skinned alive, buried alive. I mean, they killed children and women. They want to act like some of the supporters and admirers of Forrest want to act like that there were no black women and children there, but they were. Even Forrest himself said there were a large number of people that would be considered civilians at the fort. So I just want to thank the righteous ancestors and my grandma, who's an ancestor, for helping us get that marker approved with the word slaughter and massacre in it. Because that was hard to do. Because they didn't want to put the women and children in there because we couldn't prove it, but we could prove it because we found primary sources. But it is what it is. But we're currently raising money. We're going to do the unveiling of the historic marker at the Memphis National Cemetery. We found 109 cemetery plots of the remains of the victims of the Fort Pillow Massacre that they were able to locate. They were moved there back in 1867. We just found their proper location December 2016. We got a genealogist and a military history expert working with We All Be Group Incorporated, Brother Lyndon Comstock. He worked with us to find the actual locations of the remains of the victims of Nathan Bedford Forrest. So we did a proper military burial for them last year with 21 gun salute, Marine Corps playing taps, riderless horse, and police escort and limousine service for the descendants of the survivors of the Fort Pillow Massacre. So what I'm asking is, when you donate, when you give to this platform, we're working on raising money. You got to raise $2,500 to complete the historic marker, and they'll be there for posterity for generations to come. So this is the work that I know I'm talking at length about this, but this is kind of stuff that we do and We All Be that you should support. I'm not just running my mouth here. I'm telling y'all good information. We're doing good work in the community. I need y'all to support that. Y'all need to support the soldiers and the people on the front lines that support you all. You don't have to be out there on the front, but everybody could play a role. And people could promote this podcast, get more people to subscribe to this podcast, donate, buy gear, buy art, whatever. But if I'm doing good stuff, you really like it, and you have been taking advantage of it, and it's helping you become a better person to grow into your purpose and God work, support what we're doing. So it could be around longer to put out even more stuff. Because somebody said on one of my videos, can you put out more content? I think this person also criticized me and said I should have shut my mouth up, that I'm irrelevant since Dick Gregory died or some stuff like that. But now they want more content. But I tell you, support what we're doing. If you want more content, give me the freedom to be able to research more, to be able to do things more, to update you all. If you really believe in what we're doing, because like I said, I gave you information that all them videos they got over 6-figure hits on ain't giving y'all. My videos don't get hardly no hits per se, but somehow it's funny to me when I go out in these streets, when I go around the country, people recognize Brother Ron. They recognize the face or they recognize the voice, and they recognize the work. So I'm amazed. But the sad thing I noticed that people will utilize your work and not give you proper credit for it. I had people approach me in the last several days who have used my intellectual property, did not invite me to their event or anything, but they'll tell me a year or two later, oh yeah, we use your stuff. And my contact information is all throughout my stuff. This is how we do each other. And that's why I don't let stuff get to me like that no more, because I understand I'm dealing with sick people, and what I'm doing, God give us gifts to heal, and I'm using my gifts to help heal the world, make it a better place. I'm trying to use my gift to heal, not to hurt or harm. So I hope that if you have seen the benefit from utilizing my information, my art, my gifts, please feel free to give back. Don't be afraid. Don't hold back. Don't be ashamed. Give back. So made my pitch for that. But what I want to say, oh yeah, Michael Jackson. When Quincy Jones talked about him being greedy, I thought about what Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney, you know, they used to be close, right? Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson used to be close. And you know, they did that video and they did that song on Thriller. What's that song called? Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney collaboration. They did. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The Girl Is Mine or something like that. I gotta look this up. But bear with me. But anyway, Michael Jackson asked Paul McCartney for some business advice. And Paul McCartney told him that one of the best things he could do is get in the business of buying music catalogs. You know, buying up people's songs and stuff and publishing. So not only did Michael Jackson follow that advice, he actually brought the Beatles catalog, the Beatles. And Paul McCartney tried to outbid Michael Jackson for the Beatles catalog. All Michael did was follow his advice and brought the Beatles catalog. And you know, this is show you how powerful Michael Jackson was. Michael Jackson was able to buy it, even though Paul McCartney had the support of Yoko Ono and some other folks. He still was able to get the Beatles catalog. And really, that was the death of him, to be honest with you, to have that type of power. So, like, they go back to what they said about Malcolm X when he was able to organize that march and rally, and then he was able to make the people disperse by just using his hands. Like, that's too much power for one person to have. It's too much power for one black man to have. And people don't really appreciate the sacrifices and stuff Michael Jackson had to do in order to play that game. And to me, I am encouraged by the examples of Otis Redding and Michael Jackson. We got to stop being goddamn cowards about this thing and recognize where we at. We keep on talking about some Black Wall Street shit, and we have not figured out that you must protect your interests with your goddamn life. You must be willing to die for what you want. You must be willing to die for what you believe in, and you must be willing to die to manifest a better tomorrow for your people. If you're not willing to put your life on the line, you talking all this big boy shit. Well, you need to take your big boy pants off and bend the fuck over and take it in the back. Because that's what I'm saying. Because I don't have to look at all this, you know, people talking about history. So every time I hear something about Black Wall Street this, Black Wall Street or Wall Street that, the biggest mistake is that we didn't protect our shit. We wasn't gangster about our shit. Italians, the Jews, Chinese, everybody's gangster about their shit. The Irish, everybody gangster. They make movies about it. They celebrate it. But black folk, we all about let's get on our knees and so submit, get on our knees and pray. You know how many Negroes, niggas, black folks that died getting lynched? I wonder sometimes, what was the last words of some of our ancestors when they got lynched? Oh, Jesus. Oh, God, please. Jesus, please. Did Jesus come? Who came? Did anybody come? Did anybody hear? Now, one of our ancestors, James Cameron, there's a famous picture of these two black dudes strung up in a tree back in the early 1930s, Marion, Indiana. James Cameron is one of the few people that we know of that actually survived the actual lynching. They say he's the only one. I don't believe he's the only one. He's one of the few probably that we know of that survived a lynching. Now, they were dragged out their jail cells, and his two partners were lynched, and he was let go. And it's online. Look up the lynching. And type of James Cameron, Marion, Indiana lynching, whatever. He did the Black Holocaust Museum. He died maybe in the last 10 or 15 years. He was elder, but you know, he created a Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee. I don't know if it's up and running still. I think it closed down after his death, but I think it was got reopened. I don't know. But that's, he said that there was a voice from the crowd that said he didn't do anything wrong. He's innocent, and that's why they let them go. But they interviewed people from that night, them white people. Because you can see the white people's face as clear as day. You can see people with tattoos and see people with missing teeth and shit. You can see children there. Look at that picture. They interviewed people that were there that night, and they said we didn't hear no voice. But he said he heard a voice that told them to say, let him go. He didn't do anything. So he survived and he never forgot the incident. And so he made the Black Holocaust Museum. So what I'm saying is we act like we don't know how this thing goes. The Kennedys, all these guys, they played the game, but they played to win. They didn't play for a moral victory. We all into moral victories. That's why Bill Belichick got 5 rings, okay? That's why Tom Brady got 5 rings. They lost them 3, but they got 5, right? And they didn't celebrate, we got to the Super Bowl. That's good enough. Now they want to fucking win. Win, baby, win. Y'all celebrate just getting to the dance. Did y'all dance with the right person, or y'all dance with the people that y'all came with? I mean, what was the purpose of getting to the dance? Just to say you was there? A lot of us just be happy to say we was there. We're not happy to say that we achieve anything of note that would enable us to elevate ourselves and our families and to pass it on for posterity. We don't care about that type of stuff. We wait for these white folks, these people who could not be honest about who they are, to validate us. And that's a goddamn problem. That's a goddamn problem. And like I said, Michael Jackson did what the white man would have done. Paul McCartney got mad for Michael Jackson outfoxing his ass, but he didn't want to spill all the tea. Michael Jackson was no goddamn dummy. He was very intelligent. People say he was broke. He wasn't broke. He had the intellectual property. You know, he just had to liquidate some assets to get some money, whatever. But that's white folks stuff. See, we have been conditioned to accept a mentality of poverty. I would never call myself impoverished or have a poverty mindset. My mind is very rich and wealthy. You know what I'm saying? My mind is broke is just a temporary state, but to be poor is something else. I'm not poor because I have a rich life. I have substantial relationships with certain types of people. I'm able to create the things I want to create. I don't have to answer nobody. I'm accountable for myself. So my life, regardless of what my financial situation may be, it's not bad. You know what I'm saying? I was able to meet some extraordinary people along the way on my journey. And I plan on meeting some more extraordinary people. And I plan on meeting myself and learning more about myself and learning to love myself more. So these are very important lessons you got to take with you all as you make your walk. If you don't believe in yourself and love yourself, who's going to believe in you and love you? If you can't do that for yourself, be kind, patient, and loving with yourself. I might do some more Quincy Jones stuff later on, but I just want to put that out there. It's been 2 hours. And Sensory Picture said Michael Jackson had over 25 years in the game before that time and then secured numerous catalogs before that time. Yeah, but people, y'all be using these as cautionary tales. You don't want to enter like Michael Jackson. You don't want to enter like Otis Redding. You don't want to enter like Prince. Yeah, fight for what you want and be willing to die for what you want. We be sending our people the wrong message. We try to say, well, we should know our place. Fuck that shit. Then for every Emmett Till, that's a Jack Johnson, okay? Shit. Y'all talking about some heaven later. I said, don't make a difference what happened later if you can't get the shit now. If I can't get what I want now, what the fuck later got to do with what heaven got to do with? What heaven got to do with it if I can't get what I want now? I'm done talking. Consciousness is the real currency. I heard that. I always say knowledge is the currency of the universe, but to have knowledge is to be conscious and know how to apply that knowledge is consciousness. A lot of people, they say they're conscious, they're not conscious because it's kind of weird. Like I said at this thing recently, it's kind of strange to me that people talk about agents and shit. Oh, he an agent. He an agent. Well, nigga, you paying taxes to the government that killed your leaders, that's poisoning the people of Flint, Michigan. You got the goddamn nerds talking about goddamn agent. We are some motherfucking agents. I don't want to hear nothing otherwise because all you Negro, people who listen to me right now, we all fucking agents because we have not done anything to overturn this filthy, evil, wicked ass system. So don't tell me about who a fucking agent is. Miss me with that bullshit. Bunch of motherfucking cowards. That's what we are. Miss me with the bullshit because y'all talking about this, that. I got reason why I repeat shit all the time. Reason why Dick Gregory had to repeat shit. We got to repeat shit because niggas don't be listening. Niggas ain't listening. Y'all hear frequencies and vibrations and shit. You know, y'all hear things that, you know, we emotional, spiritual people. But what I'm saying is, miss me with the bullshit. It's time for study now. It's time. Everybody keep looking at my face. Well, have you saw that so-and-so show? I'm not looking at all this shit right now. It's nothing but distractions right now, man. It's study time. Not looking on goddamn news. It ain't nothing new on the news. Talking about Trump all day ain't news. And y'all gotta be careful about that shit too, because y'all, if you are a follower of Malcolm X, as y'all say, many y'all say, well, I follow Malcolm. A lot of y'all have not heard one full speech that Malcolm made, have not read anything on Malcolm outside the autobiography. And if you read the autobiography, it was not the autobiography, it was Cliff Notes. So what I'm saying is, Malcolm told you about the media and what it does. It can make your friends your enemy and your enemies your friends. So be wary of that. And like, look at, like I said, with the GQ thing. Read between the lines and read what's said, but read between the lines and research yourself. Like I said, this podcast could be 2+ hours, 3 hours. I already gave y'all some good information about the Quincy Jones thing that was suspect in maybe 10 minutes. Y'all could go run, tell that or whatever, but it is what it is. But support this. If you have benefited at all for what I'm doing, you want to keep on seeing me do this, because I could be somewhere else, because I got a lot, man. We doing stuff, man. We making moves. I'm in the process of moving around. We making moves. If you want to be a part of this, fine. And I'm looking for people to help with my projects. If you want them people, I don't want all this hocus pocus shit. Yeah, people be sending me these emails. There'll be like books and novellas and shit. I can't read all that. I just zone out on it, to be honest with you. And I don't return everybody phone call because everybody ain't worth talking to. I'm doing work out here, and most people don't know what they want to do with themselves. But the people that got the purpose, people always want to villainize people that they got goals and they got purpose, they got a focus. Everybody else is wandering aimlessly around and waiting for somebody to save their ass. You don't realize that you are the God, you are the Jesus that you've been waiting for. You Jesus, you the God you've been waiting for. Save yourself. So with that said, I'm gonna just get in it on this note. Do more likes of my stuff, man. I be like, damn, I be like a redheaded stepchild. I be seeing people that go viral with all this stuff. And some of the stuff people ain't saying. People talking about data. Data is good, but data could be manipulated. Don't let people marginalize you. You choose who you want to be and what you want to do in this life. This is your movie. You are the director. You are the lead actor. You are the executive producer. You are the screenwriter. You choose the genre. You choose the key players. This is your life. This is your story. Be the main character in it. And with that said, I want to thank you all for listening to Brother Ron run his mouth once again. If you like what you heard from the words of Brother Herb, please spread the good news. Share it in your networks. Make the network grow so my net worth can grow and our net worth can grow together. And feel free, like I said, in the subscription box, donate. You can make a one-time donation, or you can make a recurring donation either through PayPal or through patreon.com/WeAllBe. All the information is located in the subscription box. So feel free to subscribe and share the good news with the people. And in the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. Take care. Peace, love.